All right, welcome, Robert Malone.
Hi, Rev. How you doing?
Good, good. You?
Good. It's things have been a little bit hectic. Last week we were at the crypto conference. Next week we're at Freedom Fest in Palm Springs. It seems like we've been kind of moving and traveling nonstop. Earlier last month we were in Manchester for working out a deal with a new video streaming service platform that's being created that's more UK centric. And it's just earlier today, I was taking a lesson on the stallion with a Portuguese coach. And then it was running around doing farm chores and trimming trees and all that kind of stuff. And now managed to get a little bit of dinner, and I'm ready for your podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy suppose it's a contrast of sorts. I mean, no one else really does this on your Substack where you were talking about real substantive political issues. And then you also have these wonderful, refreshing interludes about your farming life. It's always fun to see that.
I think it that and the Friday Funnies and the Sunday Strip give our readers a break. The other stuff can get a little heavy. And I've been putting out some pretty heavy duty things, and I think tomorrow I'm going to be talking about these various drugs like ketamine that have become so popular with the Silicon Valley and Bitcoin and media world. And of course, that's hot on topics right now because of Elon Musk and the things that the press has been saying about that.
Yeah. I've written a lot about the psychotherapeutic application of psychedelic drugs, particularly MDMA and psilocybin. Ketamine has also become very popular over the past few years, even though it's technically not a psychedelic. But I don't know too much about it. But this individual, Jonathan Edwards, friend of Jay's, I met him at the Rescue the Republic event, and he has a book on ketamine, and he thinks there's a lot of promising applications of it, and probably have
a lot of people
podcast.
using it. They basically use it as a periodic reset that they believe helps them focus quite a bit more, focus their mind. And some people think that it's helpful with depression and other things, other kind of. In many ways, it's somewhat similar to how people used to use lysergic acid diethylamide during the 60s and 70s.
LSD.
Oh, just so.
A quick question: How, to the extent that you can share this publicly, how were because we talked about this over the phone briefly before you did this. How was the conversation with this UK-based platform for streaming? Does that look promising?
So the name of the launched application is OneVSP, as in video streaming platform. And it's a fascinating approach. It relates to the things I've been writing about the SplinterNet, the splintering of the internet, and all of the things that are driving the splintering of the internet, one of which is changes in kind of the idiosyncratic changes in national legislation, law, policy relating to censorship, because we now have a situation where instead of a global internet, we have one that is parsed into regions by censorship policy. And so in a strange way, kind of a unanticipated way for me, that creates business opportunities. That may seem a little surprising to you, but or to the general listener. But what's going on here is that the large social media platforms and other applications that have been built under the assumption that we have basically a global internet that has one set of protocols. That was the whole logic of the ISPs, the Harmonization Committee for the URLs, etc., was to make one global platform that was interchangeable, interoperable. And with the advent of these legal policies having to do with censorship from the European Union, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, the United States, And it's really evolving down into, and of course, China. Every nation state having its own idiosyncratic laws and policies. What that creates is the technical term is a lot of friction in terms of the business model for these very large integrated internet companies, platform companies like Google, and of course X, notably. So what's happening? BitChute is another one. BitChute got basically kicked out of the UK because it was not willing to comply with UK guidance and laws having to do with content and content censorship. And so what this creates is a opportunity for regional platforms to spring up that are aligned and compliant with local law and guidance. So if the UK has certain criteria for what is prohibited there that differs from the United States, that differs from the European Union, et cetera, that creates a business opportunity for a company to set up capabilities in video streaming, in social media, et cetera, that are aligned with that compartment. And of course, on top of that, as if that isn't bad enough, and regarding the SplinterNet, these kind of national boundaries that are being erected. We also have the algorithms that have been reinforcing the development of, we could call them community pods, these much smaller groups. And much of that, one of the terms that's used to refer to that, of course, we got the algorithmic things that make it so that you mostly only talk to people that have similar opinions to yours. But beyond that, there is, we call it shadow banning. Another term is small rooming, in which a person, like, for instance, just take myself, not to make it about me, but I'm a convenient example. I technically have 1.3 plus million followers on X, and many of those are international. But if you talk to the people that follow me internationally, and many of the people that follow me in the States, they never see anything I post, because the algorithm has created a structure wherein I'm only allowed to talk to about 20 to 30,000 people. Now, for many people, that's quite a bit, but it's a long way from 1.3 million. And so this creates echo chambers, of course, and it creates a sense for many people that they think that they're communicating to a much broader audience than they are, and that their opinions are much more prevalent, approved of, liked, etc. We could call it mainstream, than they really are, because what they are in an echo chamber, and they're only talking to people that are either very aligned with them or very opposed to them. The people that are angry at them, they also get let into the room because they're interacting. And so the consequence of this is that we're having layers of splintering in the internet. And one VSP has figured out a way to address that as a business model in the UK space. And what that teaches, really, is that there are business opportunities for companies to solve and provide services, solve these problems in every one of these compartmentalized nation-state geographic boundaries, which is a kind of a fascinating thing. It means that you can't have the scalability of an X, where you have international reach, but you can still build a substantial company just serving your local region.
And so this is going to be a video platform, and you were talking about creating content on there?
So the truth is, they mostly wanted, I was asked to go out there by Kat Lindley, who is an ambassador for the application and the company. And the founder, Mo, short for Mohammed, who owns the majority of the shares, but he has significant investors, wants me and others to be providing content. It's a little non-traditional for a video streaming platform like, say, BitChute or Rumble. He's really not looking for the business model to be truly open to all that would wish to upload content. He wants to concentrate more on people and business niches that are going to be more popular and that can be monetized through pay-per-view. So, for instance, he has Formula One and Formula 4 racing. He has celebrity boxing and these kinds of things that are popular, very popular in the UK. I suspect he will have football at some point, what we call soccer in the States.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's his business model. It's more of a fusion between a video streaming platform concept and you call it cable TV or streaming pay-per-view kind of concept. So we'll see how that goes, but that's what I was out in Manchester.
Yeah.
Manchester's a fascinating city. The first time I've ever been there. I don't particularly like London. I don't know if you're a fan of London. But
it's very busy, but I do like it.
It's very busy. It's chaotic. The 15-minute city kind of boundaries that have been erected are really problematic. It's a little bit jammed up and crowded. And sections of it are really unappealing, would be the gentlest way I could put it. But so say all major cities across the world, right? So Manchester struck me as a little bit different. There's a lot of students there. It's very dynamic. It's a little bit more of a friendly, more casual atmosphere. There are a number of very ethnic communities, Muslim communities that are very Muslim, unapologetically, adjacent to, for instance, Jewish communities that are very Jewish. And they're getting along. So it's a little more like New York once upon a time. And I think apparently the projections are that Manchester will, in the next few years, overtake London as the major city in the UK. Now, that may have just been Manchester civic boosterism, but we shall see.
Yeah. And one last question about this platform company that you spoke to. Are you thinking of potentially creating some kind of exclusive content or releasing new content there? Or is it still undecided?
That's up to Mo. As you know, I'm a domestic U.S. guy that does have some fair amount of travel to Europe. Matter of fact, I'm going to have a delegation from Romania coming to the farm tomorrow at noon.
Oh, wow.
The AUR party representatives are going to be here. And at the same time that a team from Epoch Times is going to be here. I didn't anticipate them both coming in at noon tomorrow. Epoch Times wants to float a new concept for a program that I would participate in. It'd be a little bit more medically focused.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, and your Substack's doing really well, I can tell. Readership there is still as strong as ever.
Well, we're treading water. It's not growing like it was but
COVID
that's
years.
the times. There's a lot more people on producing content on Substack. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
And we're stable in terms of we're growing in terms of our overall subscribers. We're stable in terms of our paid subscribers. There's a fair amount of churn there. we have a subscriber base, paid subscriber base that tends to be a little bit older. They like reading, and that's not not the profile of Joe Rogan's base, let's say.
Yeah, much younger.
So we have a little bit older base of true readers, and they, in general, are under a fair amount of financial stress, and so they support us through subscriptions, paid subscriptions, when they can, and then some of them have to drop out because of their own financial stress, and then they become free subscribers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been a concern and something I'm definitely seeing, and I'm just figuring out potentially integrating other business models, and maybe I should talk to this UK media platform as well, and just figuring out more ways to monetize, because a lot of people were paid subscribers during COVID, and the COVID crisis has died down, and a lot of people, a lot of Substacks, including my own, are seeing a lot of
Yeah,
a paid membership
well,
decline.
that's one reason we intentionally broadened starting about 2 years ago. The homesteading, and we're now developing homesteading books, so that once we decide on a book topic area, then we produce more content and serialize it through Substack, because books don't pay. You'll starve to death on the advances that you might get from the average publisher. But Substack allows us to serialize things in the best tradition and then compile it into a book. So, and I've noticed that homesteading, for us, we've been doing this. This is our fifth small farm, and this particular place where I'm broadcasting from, in this old pig farm, this property was a hayfield as of 7 years ago, and with no septic, no water, no fences, no electricity, et cetera, et cetera. And we've gradually built it out now. And it's been completely paid for, which has been a wonderful thing. But now we took a loan out. This is a big step. I had to play the credit game to get our credit score up. We had actually zero credit. Our credit score was zero because we had no debt and we made no payments. And if you don't use credit, they give you a big Z. Even if you have money in the bank, it's a strange business. They will only give you a decent score if you get credit cards and play their little games. But so we did that and took out a loan from our local farm credit bank, our local agriculture bank, because now we are building, wait for it, this is a bucket list item for Jill. We're building a covered arena so that we can work the horses all year round.
Oh, wow.
So that's a kind of a shift for us. We've spent decades breeding our horses to get to this point. We now have some fantastic stallions.
Wow.
And they're at various stages of training. And now we're going to have the facility so that we can really up our game.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm tempted to come visit the farm sometime and check it out. It sounds amazing.
Anytime. We've got a guest house. You're welcome, Rev.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, and I'm glad to hear your Substack is stable and doing well. I'm in a process right now of figuring out how to broaden out and find new ways of monetizing. I think a lot of independent journalists are in a similar situation, to figure out creating a sustainable system to continue supporting independent journalism, which is important, right? And there are so many constraints in mainstream media.
Well, our attitude. So when I decided to do this, remember it was triggered by Steve Kirsch telling me one day, "Robert, you got to get on Substack. I just made $30,000." Which was kind of a strange thing for Steve Kirsch to say, because he's I think he's probably a centimillionaire. But he was excited about $30,000 on Substack.
Yeah.
So we decided to do that, and podcasting and broadcasting, and get serious about it. But I knew from the outset, to put it this way, Joe Rogan didn't become an overnight sensation. Joe Rogan built the Joe Rogan experience year after year after year after year of putting out quality content that viewers wanted to watch. And so that's been our attitude, is that this is a long range project, and that what we needed to do was provide value for our the people that watch me and for the people that subscribe by, in the case of Substack, we publish daily, which I got to tell you is not always very easy, especially when you have a lot of travel and other things going
Yeah.
on. It's a challenge often when we're traveling, we're writing and publishing from the airplane.
Yeah. I'm aware. Yeah.
It's not a trivial commitment. It's not a casual thing.
It's a lot of work, yeah. And I see you've kind of rebranded to Malone News. Is that signaling towards more like soliciting outside contributions or other collaborators?
No. We've always, so the outside contributions, our attitude has been that I love to mentor. I love to teach. I'm at a stage in my life where I get a lot of pleasure from helping, as they say, young things to grow, whether it's plants or people or horses or dogs. And so we've always been open to helping people, whether it's cross-posting or publishing new content, to kind of get a foothold. And so it brings, what the challenge is, to make sure that what you're putting out there is consistent with what your readership wants to see, and that it's sufficient quality. It's so easy. There's some that publish on Substack that will publish little small things throughout the day as if it's Twitter. And that's coming into people's emails, inboxes. And I personally find that a little bit abusive.
It is. It's pretty annoying when people are posting the same exact thing on Substack, and I'm getting email after email. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it feels kind of spammy.
Yeah, it does. I agree. But your Substack, I can tell, has been very just welcoming, very open to new ideas, and showing me other content creators on Substack who I didn't know about, but you promoted them and shared them, and
there's a lot of good people, and it's really hard to get those first few thousand subscribers.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to help good people that have good subject matter to grow their presence. And some of them, they're able to kind of migrate from Substack to other significant media roles. And that's, you feel like you've kind of helped somebody bloom.
And you were very generous to, when me and Jay launched our Substack. Jay, who's now the head of the NIH now, which is incredible to see that trajectory of being the fringe epidemiologist, de-boosted on Twitter, and we launched our Substack and did the whole thing. Now he's head of NIH. But when we were in the early stages of launching this podcast and Substack, you were very generous in helping us out. So much appreciated, as always.
Thank you.
Let's dive in, unless you want to say anything else about some of the substantive political issues I want to get into.
Well, there's a lot going on, that's for sure.
I guess we can jump off with maybe asking you just, there's a few things I have outlined here for us to talk about, but generally speaking, with all this invigorated hope and interest in MAHA and the reformation of health agencies, a lot of hopes early on. We were both at the Rescue the Republic event, a lot of excitement, a lot of hope surrounding Jay and Marty and RFK Jr. and Trump welcoming a lot of these dissidents during COVID to come in and shake things up. What's your broad view right now on how things are going at the U.S. health agency level? Are you impressed? Are you pleased with what's happening, or underwhelmed, or what are your thoughts, generally speaking?
This has gotten really complicated, this landscape. In terms of what's going on at HHS, the 40,000 foot view, to use an airplane metaphor, or maybe it's low Earth altitude orbit. I don't know.
Yeah.
So if you look at it from above, Doge came in and there were major cuts made. The acronym is a RIF, and that stands for reduction in force. And there was a major reduction in force across HHS, not as big as the one that Bill Clinton put in, under the aegis of the Doge program. Now that's being challenged, of course. And the latest in the press is that they cut too deep. But that's, and they didn't have the right data to make the right decisions. And that's now going to be adjudicated in the courts because the courts make the decisions, not the president, apparently, in the States now. That was catty, but you'll forgive me. And so a couple of things have emerged from that. One is that with the RIF, they cut a lot of what most of us would call bureaucratic jobs, which of course was the intention, is to cut what are perceived as non-essential, non-key personnel out of the system. And remember that it's kind of standard business practice, particularly in the context of a hostile takeover, which is functionally what's happening, is you have this new administration coming in, these new ideas, this very different political orientation, and it is functionally a hostile takeover of the government with all of the trimmings and all of the usual dysfunctional behaviors. And you have this RIF, reduction in force, of the bureaucracy. The unintended consequence of that is that when you actually want to get anything done, which requires paper pushing, you no longer have the paper pushers. And so there's a lot of scrambling around right now trying to figure out how to get stuff done, because the people that, inefficiently perhaps or whatever, that traditionally have fulfilled that role, many of them are gone. And the ones that are left are left in an environment where they have learned to be very sensitive to chain of command. And that command chain is fragmented now because this, that, and the other person is gone. They're not sure who they're reporting to. They're not sure who, is setting the agenda, et cetera, et cetera. And Bobby can't sit at the top of all this, directing all of the minions about what to do. And furthermore, Bobby has around him some people that are, let's say gently, very protective of him and his time. The consequence of that is that for most folks in that HHS structure, he's not readily reachable. And so the kind of mid-level management is gutted. And the upper level management is new, hasn't been involved in managing a large entity like this. This is the largest department in the entire government. I keep saying that, but people don't recognize what that means. Technically, at least for the visible budget, HHS is substantially larger than the Department of Defense.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
So Bobby is sitting at the top of the pyramid of a massive, massive federal bureaucracy. And he has been many things in his life, but somebody responsible for direct administration of tens of thousands of people is not one of those things. So he has many gifts. He is a charismatic leader. He's a transformational leader, et cetera, et cetera.
Ambitious,
but right now, to get stuff done, he has to rely on those around him and below them. And that is a bit chaotic right now. And so you end up with Secretary Kennedy operating almost quasi-independently of the whole HHS structure. He's a force to be reckoned with. And he has a small cadre of strong advocates that support him, people like Kelly Means, but who's in the White House, and many others in the White House. And you saw the rollout for the all-of-government MAHA Commission with their initial commission report. I think it was 3 weeks ago. But for the most part, the structure below him, there's a lot of chaos right now, and there's also a lot of, let's say, passive-aggressive behavior. The people don't realize, but I've realized all the way along, I've warned Jay about this, the longstanding DC government service rank and special executive service rank employees really don't appreciate political appointees very much. They truly believe they're the ones that run the government. And the political appointees are transient. And if they don't like their politics, they don't like what they do, what they stand for, they'll wait them out. And they have a rich portfolio of ways to block, torpedo, slow walk, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a fair amount of that going on right now. And it's not just in HHS, it's across all the government. Harmeet Dillon did a great hit the other day with Tucker Carlson, in which she talked about this.
Yeah, she did.
So you ask, how's it going? That's the bad news. Now the good news. In my opinion, what is being done in the MAHA agenda is vastly exceeding my expectations, both in time and in scope. Despite all of the intransigence and obstructionism that the MAHA agenda is encountering within the bureaucracy, just like Doge did, it is making substantial headway. And remember that MAHA Commission report represented the first 100 days of work in which the president had directed that they would basically do a threat assessment, using my own words. They would define the problem. And then the next 100 days that they're currently in the middle of right now, they would come up with their potential solution set. And then, hopefully, before the midterms, they implement that solution set. Of course, that's the 800-pound gorilla in the room for everybody right now in both MAHA and MAGA, which is the midterms. And it colors everything. Now, here's another bad news part. The MAHA base, or somebody that I was speaking to over the phone the other day, called it a small sliver of very loud voices. Somebody within the administration are making all kinds of noise about the fact that the RNA vaccines are still in the market.
Yeah.
And they're obsessed with this. And some of those people have put out posts that directly state that they want to tear down MAHA. That they list about 10 different reasons that they think MAHA is compromised, or it's a PSYOP, or whatever the thing is. and they are actively trying to destroy it. And part of the wedge issue that they're using for this is to make the case that action has not been fast enough on the RNA vaccines. And of course, the next spike product that was just authorized by Marty's FDA on behalf of Moderna just really aggravated a lot of people. And I understand why. But what they don't seem to be able to process is that the political landscape within which Bobby and Marty and Jay are operating, the landscape is incredibly complex. You have a president and a chief of staff who are invested in the mRNA technology. They see it as a great success. They see the Operation Warp Speed as a great success in the first term.
Yeah.
And they've, President has, I think, modified his position a bit. He's not as strident about that. Getting booed at a conference maybe sunk in a little bit. That happened around election time. But what I hear is that the political calculus is that the administration is looking very much at the midterms. And of the midterms, there's, of course, the Senate and the House, and he's particularly focused on the Senate. And the perception is that if you come out too aggressively at pharma, which Bobby would, if you can tell you from talking to Bobby, if he had a chance, he would be swinging a bat with a big nail in it at pharma right now, and the WEF, et cetera, et cetera. But the political reality is that they capitalize the elections in the United States. And because they have so much excess cash from their business model, profit and their advertising and everything that goes into it. And so they functionally fund everything down to dog catcher elections in the United States. And so the president is wary of biting the hand that feeds the entire Republican Party to a significant extent, and the Democrats. So the folks that are jumping up and down and having temper tantrums, I'm sure that is going to come back at me. This will be clipped out and weaponized against me at some point, so I have to watch what I say.
Hi to all X users watching this.
But yeah, make a little timestamp there. Malone is about to shoot himself in the foot. These people seem to be very, very resistant to recognizing that Secretary Kennedy and Marty and Jay are operating in a very complicated political landscape, and they just don't have the latitude to act unilaterally. And there is no CDC director, right? The acting director was promoted to the nominee and continued to operate as the acting director, but then Axios found some obscure federal policy position that once you're nominated, you can no longer be acting director. And so she's no longer acting director, even though she's the nominee. And Bobby's had to appoint a new director, acting director, which then the press is busy complaining about after having complained that the acting director shouldn't be the acting director. You get it. I mean, the corporate media is wicked. They don't want Bobby to succeed. They don't want Trump to succeed. And it is absolutely not helpful to have people that assert that they represent Maha moms, because that's a niche that the president is very focused on.
Yeah.
Maha moms, particularly for the midterm. And they're asserting that They represent the Maha moms, and they're mad as hell. They're not going to take it anymore. And not putting words in their mouth, but functionally, this is their position. And they're busy, circulating petitions and being very loud and aggressive and complaining and asserting that Maha is a big failure and nobody wants anything to do with it. And then you have the issues that has happened with the Maha Alliance.
Hey, can you just make sure to switch off your phone? It keeps ringing with notifications, if you don't mind. If you can put it on silent.
I'll just turn it off. You have the issues that happen with Maha Action.
Yeah, wait, what happened there? I've not been following that.
Del Bigtree is no longer the CEO. You have the launch of the new Maha, what do they call it? Maha Institute.
Right.
And then
was the Maha Alliance, was that associated with this individual Leland, who I've been talking to talked to a few months ago?
It was or was it Maha Alliance or Maha Action that was associated with Dell? Yeah. So your point is well. So that's kind of where I'm trying to go. Is that we have probably 4 or 5 different organizations now that all assert that they have a slice of this pie, or are using the Maha name. The Maha name is perceived as valuable and marketable and useful for fundraising. And so there is a lot of action and activity around trying to build. It's kind of like what goes on in Substack or social media, but on a little bit larger scale, because they're tapping into big donors, or they have inherited the funding from the political action committees that were set up to support Bobby's campaign. And then you have people that were formerly affiliated with Bobby, like Nicole Shanahan.
Yeah, and actually, just sorry to interject, I just want to clarify, Leland Lehrman, this individual who I met a few months ago at Jay's hearings, he's associated with Maha Action and is doing a really great work there, as far as I've seen. And I've had good conversations with him.
Yes, there's a lot of players and a lot of, unfortunately, fragmentation happening right now and a fair amount of churn. So that's not helping. And meanwhile, Secretary Kennedy no longer really has the latitude to serve as the nominal leader of Maha, together with the Means and others, because he's busy managing the largest cabinet level organization in the United States government. So he's doing what he can, but he has to work. What people don't understand is, yes, Bobby is, I know this because I speak to him from time to time. I spoke to him yesterday. He has very specific plans about sequencing key strategic actions regarding vaccines and food additives and other things. So he has all that in his mind, but it's not like he can just publish it and say, hey, guys, this is what I'm going to do. Today I'm going to do this, tomorrow I'm going to do that, because I can't do it all at once. That is not the way that the ecosystem works, political ecosystem. And so you have a lot of folks that are busy complaining because their particular agenda isn't being advanced as fast as they think it should be, because, of course, for them, it's the most important agenda. But I know for a fact that Secretary Kennedy is battling on multiple fronts. That's what we saw with the MAHA Commission report. It was quite bold. There's never been anything like that coming out of the U.S. government before. He's taking on multiple major global industries all at once.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to clarify, you were saying So Dale Bigtree, I just was clarifying online here. He was leading MAHA Alliance, the Political Action Committee, and the related nonprofit MAHA Action. And you were saying he's no longer affiliated with MAHA Alliance?
I don't know affiliated. I know that he's no longer the CEO.
Okay. And that has to do with some of these core substantive divisions? Was that what you were suggesting?
I think it has. I don't know what the backstory is. I've been trying to get it. I'll see Dell at Freedom Fest next week. But what I heard was that there was some of the major donors felt that Dell has many strengths. He's obviously a fantastic communicator. But as a CEO for a large non-governmental organization, that's not his particular core competence.
Okay. And yeah, there's obviously been a lot of debate and divisions in some of these MAHA groups, and it's unfortunate to see certain conflicts arise and distract from some of the core issues, which I know a lot of people are concerned about. And the mRNA vaccines, I've always had the stance, and I understand where our opponents are coming from on this, but to me, you have to be in contact with reality, and you can't let the perfect be the enemy of progress.
Thank you. Bingo.
And the MAHA purists have wanted the mRNA shot banned right away. And I know Mary Bowden, she had this big debate with Callie on the Danny Jones podcast with Jack Cruz, which I watched. And from what I can tell, Mary has been doing great work during the pandemic. She was just on Joe Rogan. I saw a photo. The podcast has not been released yet.
And yet, strangely, she attacked. She posted something at me the other day complaining that it's only women that are carrying the flag, and where are all the men? And I said to her, Mary, you were just on Joe Rogan. Do you understand what Joe Rogan's base is? Do you even understand what your base is? Mary has, I'm sorry to say, I'll say this bluntly, gone off the rails a little bit. She's very angry, but it's working for her. She, as you said, she's been on Rogan now. She has increased her subscriber base substantially by advancing this very strident, confrontational tone, absolutist tone. And what I find odd about that is that having toured with her, when some of us were sticking our necks way out on opposing the jab and saying it should be withdrawn, such as myself, Mary was only talking about ivermectin. So this passion of hers is relatively recent, but it's absolutely working for her and for others like Naomi Wolf. And what I find intriguing, not Mary, but many of these people that are being so strident happen to and are saying things like they are absolutely anti-MAHA and want to take it down. This doesn't make sense to me, but they are funded by the wellness company.
Yeah, I saw you brought that up in an exchange with Naomi Wolf over X. But just to back up about Mary, what's been the source? Have you had any public conflict with her, and what's been the source of that? Has it been the mRNA vaccine
I've
debate?
never had any conflict. I've always supported Mary.
Okay.
But and I don't have anything with her, but she is. I wish that she would recognize that Secretary Kennedy and Marty and Jay have to operate in a complex political environment, and they don't have the latitude to take the unilateral action that she's demanding that they take. And she does not want to hear that. She doesn't want to hear that there are political realities. It's a very absolutist, strident, angry position.
Yeah, and one that could have unintended or very predictable consequences. You might end up
Well,
burning a
so
lot of
let's
bridges
talk
by
about those
making those.
consequences.
Yeah,
What's going on from one framing? So one version of the narrative that emerges from this is that Secretary Kennedy's base has fractured, and he no longer has a solid base behind him. If that's the case, then they have just cut him off at the knees politically, just as he's starting to get momentum. Now, having spoken to him about this briefly, he's not worried. He sees these people as a small splinter, and he's not worried about them. He's dealing with much bigger challenges. In the face of taking on big pharma, big ag, big food, Mary Bowden's complaints are not at the top of his priority list, I'm pretty sure.
right. Yeah, and again, and we'll talk about some of the recent progress made on this, but to me, calling for a blanket mRNA shot ban was never politically feasible. And even if you agreed with it, articulating it could have been politically disastrous given the fact that the media is already adversarial,
It
given
would
the
have
influence
been,
of big pharma on
it is
politics.
disastrous. And
It's just
that was
naive.
self-evident from the outset. The only strategy, as Senator Ron Johnson spoke to me about months ago, he said, people want me to take legislative action right now, introduce bills, etc. And he said that will fail completely. The only way that we can make progress, and remember, he is truly passionate about the vaccine injured. He is committed to the vaccine injured and to helping them. That's the reason why he ran for re-election. Bless his heart. So he's passionate, but he's also a experienced survivor on the Hill in D.C. in the Senate, and his strategy has been that if the Republicans took the majority in the Senate, which they did, that he would then become the sitting chairperson of the Homeland Security Permanent Select Subcommittee on Investigations, and he would have the power of the subpoena. And so he would subpoena all these documents and these agencies and these people that have failed to provide information or have provided highly redacted information about the product, about the harms, about the myocarditis, etc. His intention, as he told me months ago, was to use this new position to gather this data, to make this data available to the public in tranches in a way that would make it so compelling that it would shift public opinion, and hopefully people would then demand major change, legislative change, about things like the Pandemic on All Hazards Preparedness Act, which is what enabled all this stuff. You have various people jabbering, it's all the military, it's all this, all that. No, it's written into law. What just happened to us was built into federal law stepwise, including the technical ability to bypass globally accepted bioethical norms for coercion, compulsion, and enticement of people to accept an experimental medical product. That was all built into the law in a stepwise fashion. And it's wicked hard to get laws rescinded in the United States, even to make major changes in them. And so that's what the senator is doing. And likewise, the strategy on the MAHA side has been to gather the information from places like the CDC and the FDA, deploy that information like Twitter file tranches that will knock the press off of their gimbals because they'll be reacting all the time to this. and shift national opinion, because those of us like yourself and myself and Mary, we're all, that's the strange thing, is we all have a common goal and objective.
Yeah.
We want these products taken off. We've wanted these products disapproved, unauthorized for years. The difference is in the strategy and tactics. The objective is we all agree on, but there's all this division, divisiveness, splintering on the tactics. And there are these loud voices that are saying, you must do this immediately, which, as you correctly point out, will be political suicide. And the only way that you can do this effectively is you have to shift majority opinion, because right now, the likes of you and I and Mary are a minority opinion.
Yeah.
And somehow we got to make it the majority opinion, or otherwise we're asking our leadership to put their head on the chopping block and, go visit Madame Guillotine. That's just stupid.
Yeah, it's I think the heart's in the right place for a lot of these people. I can't speak about everyone, but I think for a lot of people, their heart's in the right place. Although you mentioned the wellness company and some of the complexities there, which I'm not fully aware about. But I feel like it's just a quixotic, naive, myopic perspective to want to instate these bans right away.
I'm going to use a stronger word. It's immature. It's beyond naive. This kind of emotionalism and stridency is it's got a narcissistic aspect to it. It also has an opportunist aspect, because the people that are being so strident are building their followings, because people click, like, follow those that are raising controversy and are angry. And as I said, it's absolutely worked for Mary. It's working for others. And unfortunately, they are building their following by sucking the life out of the Maha base. And what that does is it makes Bobby weaker politically.
My sense is their political calculus is just wrong. But you're actually saying that you think they're doing it to, in part, at least, to build their following. Like, I just feel like they're wrong, and they're very passionate about their convictions.
There's a lot more than that. This, as we talked in the early phase of this podcast, a lot of these folks have lost their careers, as I did. They are, like me, dependent on new business models, including media business models. And a lot of them aren't thriving economically. And I think there is a certain amount of strident desperation going on, and certainly opportunism in trying to build their brand in the face of a shrinking market.
Are you suggesting this about particularly Naomi and Mary? I mean, they seem to be doing fine. I mean, I don't know much about what's happening with them, but are you suggesting that that's what's causing this in their case, or are you talking about other people?
Tie individuals to observation. I think this is a broad thing, and it's a trend that I've seen again and again and again over the last 5 years. I talk about it in the Cyber book. This is the irony here. What I observe is very similar to corporate media's business model. In short, if it bleeds, it leads. These angry, dissenting, contrarian, and also often pumping fear. A lot of this is building fear and mistrust. Fear, mistrust, anger absolutely equates to following, clicks, likes, and monetization. If you really want to build your Substack, Rav, you should start getting angry.
Yeah, of course. That's what sells. Not the more balanced, neutral, or more sensible takes. It's the more sensationalist, fear-driven ones that sell better.
Absolutely.
That's the reality. And we should talk about a couple of things in a few elements of progress here. So the RFK Jr. has announced that the CDC will no longer be recommending the mRNA COVID shots to pregnant women and healthy kids, and this comes after the FDA's announcement that they will only be approving shots for 65 plus and people with a risk factor for COVID.
And unfortunately, they define pregnancy as a risk factor. So the CDC policy that you're talking about, and by the way, there's been a fair amount of passive aggressiveness in the CDC about updating their websites to align with the Secretary's announcement, or I should say the joint announcement, with the Secretary, with the Commissioner of the FDA and the Director of NIH. But the policy, as enumerated by the Commissioner and the Director of the Center for Biologics and Evaluation Research from the FDA, is that if the COVID booster product indication is for a high-risk group, 65 and older is one of the high-risk groups. Pregnancy is a high-risk group. Apparently, the high-risk groups, if you add them up in the United States, comes to a population of something around 40 to 50. So it's a pretty large high-risk group filter they created.
Yeah.
But if the indication in pregnancy, unfortunately, is considered a high risk for COVID, data pending as far as I'm concerned, but that's what they say. Then a product can be a booster can be authorized based on merely antibody data. And the irony with that is that the new director of CBER has railed for years now, as have I, that antibody data is not a correlate of protection. It doesn't.
You're talking about Vinay Prasad?
They're going to work for anything.
You're talking about Vinay Prasad?
Pardon?
You're talking about Dr. Vinay Prasad?
Yeah. So the policy is that antibody titers are going to be sufficient for authorization for the high-risk groups, at least for now. And for the average risk groups, the non-high-risk groups, let's put it that way, then they have to use placebo-controlled trials, true placebo-controlled trials. And one of the problems that we're running into is a lot of the folks that are active and very loud on social media have a tendency to skim documents and not read for comprehension. Just an observation from reading hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments over the last 5 years. They don't read for comprehension, and so they jump to conclusions that New England Journal article that laid down the new policy was saying that they were going to require placebo-controlled trials for new licensed booster products. And they do. But they don't require placebo-controlled trials for the indications that are considered to be high-risk groups. They miss that. And that is the nuance that was used to authorize the next spike Moderna product. And frankly, the timing is such that when that New England Journal article was written and submitted, they probably already knew that the Moderna next spike product was pretty much ready for authorization.
Okay.
I can't, from my experience in regulatory affairs and regulatory submissions, et cetera, and I am reasonably qualified in that area, have significant experience, have held jobs in that area as a regulatory affairs specialist. There is no way that that Moderna package wasn't already well along in its review process at FDA when those policies were issued.
Interesting. Okay. And are you disagreeing with this FDA policy?
Say again, you speak a little louder.
Are you disagreeing with this FDA policy?
Personally, I think that authorizing vaccines based on antibody titers is just plain non-scientific. I absolutely disagree. I wrote what some assert to be the definitive expert opinion on the vaccine industry that's published. It has to do with a case brought by whistleblowers against Merck for the MMR product. And in that, the whistleblowers that brought the complaint documented manipulation of data relating to testing of the immune responses in the mumps vaccine. And it was exactly the same issue.
And so what do you make?
Somebody in influenza, spent a lot of years in influenza product development. Influenza has some authorized correlates of protection. But in order to get a correlate of protection, you have to show that the thing that you're measuring is predictive of protection. Makes sense. You're going to call it a correlate of protection against the disease or infection. You darn well better show that when this thing goes up, you get protection, and when it goes down, you lose protection, within thresholds. You have an obligation to demonstrate that's the case. And just saying it produces antibodies when, frankly, the probability is that the antibodies that it produces are not protective. Protection against most of these viral diseases comes from, particularly acutely, comes from cellular immune responses, not antibody responses. This is a major issue in the whole vaccines field. Is this obsession about antibody titers. Antibody titers are a hot mess. They are an amalgamation of a whole lot of different stuff. They are not the predictor that has been sold to us. And the problem is, since they're easy to measure, then the manufacturers and the FDA both find it convenient to focus on those. Again, the metaphor that comes to mind is the story that I quoted the other day. I used a Noam Chomsky quote when I was talking about confirmation bias in one of my essays. That being the joke about the drunk who lost his car keys, and he's searching under the streetlight for his car keys, and the cop comes by and wants to help him, and he says, "Well, are you sure you lost your car keys here by the streetlight?" And the drunk says, "No, I lost them across the street, but this is the only place there's light where I can actually look for them." And that's kind of what happens with science. Okay, is science looks at the phenomena that it has technology for observing. But that doesn't mean that the phenomena that it's observing have anything to do with the cause and effect relationship that it's trying to detect, but it's convenient to look under the streetlight because it's the only place where you can really see things. You follow the metaphor.
Right.
And this is the case with antibodies. And unfortunately, the FDA is still on that track, as is the CDC. And this was one of the major problems in AIDS vaccine development. This is torn the AIDS vaccine community apart for decades now. And it happens to be the community that I grew out of. It's kind of my birthplace. So I'm very familiar with these controversies.
Right. And I read your piece, which was excellent, by the way, on mRNA products being removed from the CDC schedule a few days ago. So what do you make of that particular news?
What do I make of it? This is at the root of this tension between those of us that are saying, guys, wake up. We're making amazing progress. and those that are saying, no, you're not. You haven't banned everything all at once everywhere. The leadership in HHS, I believe, is moving faster than I would expect, given all the headwinds that they're facing. And I know personally that there are more things to come in terms of vaccines issues, and that it would behoove people to allow HHS leadership the latitude and the trust to move on these issues in a stepwise, coordinated fashion without getting subjected to a circular firing squad. But, some people are impatient. But a number of things are in progress relating to the whole vaccines industry. And I really counsel folks to have a little bit of patience and trust. Do you really think that Bobby Kennedy, after devoting his life to children's health and mercury and these other things, is going to suddenly abandon his principles? That is not the way this guy is wired.
Right. And we have to remember the FDA, and Marty and Vinay did a short discussion talking about this. He was saying the FDA is not your doctor, and the FDA's job is to approve products, not recommend them. It's the CDC's job to recommend. And the CDC, it appears, under Secretary Kennedy, will not be recommending the COVID shots to pregnant women and healthy kids.
Key point, there's a couple of nuances within that. You're absolutely right. And by the way, technically, this is a sore point for anybody in regulatory affairs. The FDA doesn't approve anything. It authorizes marketing because it all flows from the Commerce Clause in the U.S. Constitution. So that's what the FDA's charter is they can authorize interstate marketing. You're absolutely right.
How's that different from approving something? How's authorizing?
They don't use the term approval. If he used that term approval, he's going to get straightened out by some of his subordinates, I suspect.
Yeah, I forget what term they use, but people generally say, "Oh, this product has gotten FDA approval." As kind of general.
And they're wrong when they do that.
Okay.
That is a technical that drives regulatory affairs people nuts. But you're absolutely right that the CDC establishes standard of care.
Right.
In the case of vaccines, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices functionally establishes standard of care. What that means is that if a doctor does not comply with that, they are basically putting a target on their back that says, sue me, for malpractice. Furthermore, the congressionally authorized Vaccines for Children program has a clause that when these products are authorized or recommended by the CDC for inclusion in the Vaccines for Children program, for being on the childhood vaccine schedule, that triggers the indemnification clause. So if you want to change the landscape and put pharma in a position where they have to stand by their own products or face legal liability for not doing so, the most straightforward way, because you're not going to get a bill through Congress, is to get them off the childhood schedule. They're off the childhood schedule, they lose the indemnification, and that sets the whole cascade, and the trial lawyers will salivate. So that is part of this, but it's all got to be done in a stepwise fashion against enormous headwinds with all kinds of passive aggressive delays, slow walking, intransigence, the courts, everything that can be deployed to stop this incremental improvement in medical practice that so many of us want to see. And if Bobby guys, get real. If Bobby was to just say, this is the way things are, we're no longer going to have such a complex vaccine schedule for children. We're no longer going to authorize the mRNA products. It would go straight to court, and there would be an injunction or 100 injunctions, and the whole thing would be bollock stuff. And it would go to the Supreme Court, and they'd probably lose because they hadn't done due process. Okay, so that is the reality, guys. He does. You think somebody said to me talking about this the other day? They told an anecdote about Pope Benedict, and somebody from the press was interviewing Pope Benedict, and talking to him, asking him questions about, what's it like to have so much power. And so the story goes, the Pope took them, the person for the press, to a room of typists and clerks that reported to the Pope. And it was a big room, a lot of people working away. And the Pope said, see that room? See that far wall at that end of that room? That's where my power stops. That is functionally the situation the secretary finds himself in, except for his room isn't that big because he can't get his appointments confirmed. Because the same people, I could share some stories, but the same people that are slowing all this for everything else are slowing his appointments.
In your piece, which I was reading before this podcast on the COVID mRNA products being removed from the CDC schedule, which again, this post is very informative, and I cross-posted this to my audience before our discussion said we were speaking. And by the way, the audience, we have a few questions for you from the readers. But you were highlighting in this excellent piece some highlights related to vaccines from the MAHA Commission report, which we can talk about next. But there were a few points in there about the lack of inert placebo-controlled trials, the sheer aggressive and extremely comprehensive nature of the U.S. vaccine schedule compared to other countries, a lack of understanding of risks in children and pregnant women, etc.
In particular, the risks associated with product interactions, which are never assessed.
Right. Yeah. Can you speak a little bit about that? And so we can start talking about the MAHA report, which I wanted to get into next. But do you sense that the MAHA report has done a good job of addressing concerns related to vaccines?
I would say I know for a fact from talking to people that folks need to understand that thing was represented a Herculean effort because it is a all of government product. And it involved compromise after compromise after compromise between different constituencies reflected by different agencies, say, for instance, including the Department of Agriculture, just to pick out one particular prominently. And so as a consequence, that is a whole lot of politics. And it took a long time to get there, to that final report. And the final wording was being negotiated until the last minute. So no surprise that some of the references got a little bit messed up, et cetera, et cetera. This is a work product that represents a major set of compromises. This is like the big, beautiful bill, in a way. This is a all of government compromise to get to this point. And, there's all this, the irony of all these attacks at Callie Means, frankly, who is a special government employee. So he's a part-time guy. You know what his salary is, Rav?
No, I don't know.
What's the salary that Callie Means is getting for all of his hard work and all this grief he's getting? The
I don't know.
answer is zero. He's doing it for free.
Okay.
He's doing it
That's
for
what
free.
special government employees, they don't get paid?
No, they can get it. They can get paid, but Cali is not. You have the option to take a salary or not, and he is refusing any compensation.
Wow,
And he
that's
worked.
commendable.
He worked insanely long hours, and the irony of all these attacks on Cali, that he is not sufficiently anti-vaccine, is the extent that there was any
Ridiculous.
anti-vaccine language in that document is a testimony to Cali's Herculean efforts to get that language in there. Okay? The people that are busy attacking him don't realize that he's actually their best friend in the context of the office of the president. I mean, he sits in the office of the president. He doesn't report to Bobby. And he put in insane numbers of hours, as testified by a staffer that I ran into when I was at the White House for the rollout. That came up to me and talked to me about it. And he had told me this also. He's not a person to self-victimize, but he is a little frustrated that he keeps getting attacked for not being sufficiently anti-mRNA and anti-vaccine, when in fact he's the one that's been pushing that agenda in the White House against a hell of a lot of headwinds. But the people that are doing all the complaining, some of the names that we've mentioned, don't seem to have any interest in cross-checking what's actually going on and who's actually doing what. They just, share their opinions in a very angry, extravagant way.
And I'll just jump in here and say, with Cali, I'm very impressed with what he's done over the last few years. I remember reaching out to him, and we did a podcast a couple of years ago, and just his journey over the past few years, like the conviction that he speaks with, strikes me as authentic as can be. And what he's done, going back to the Tucker interview, the Rogan interview, facilitating this connection between Bobby Kennedy and Trump, and creating this bipartisan, really transpartisan.
Like,
this is beyond politics.
How important
bring people together and uniting them
in
through
bringing
health.
that together. Yeah.
He deserves a lot of credit, and he's getting attacked by the big pharma folks, the mainstream media folks, and some of these MAHA purists who don't understand the political reality and are just calling for these blanket mRNA bans without understanding that would be political suicide, as you had said. Cali, to his credit, he went on Danny Jones's podcast, and I don't know if you saw it, but he took a lot of fire from Mary Bowden and Jack Cruz, who I thought were completely unfair to him, especially Jack. I mean, he was just out to destroy him. And that was the way he was conducting himself was completely unethical and just violated just social norms in a conversation. Cali was repeatedly trying to have a conversation like, "Hey man, let's try to work together. Let's talk from heart to heart." And he was just not having it. And that was indicative of this broader pathology in MAHA that I'm seeing, where they're wanting these high-minded, lofty goals to be executed with perfection right away, without understanding that there are political realities at play. And Cali, and we could talk about his sister too in a second, I think is doing an excellent job. In fact, I don't know if anyone could do a better job to implement some of these things and actually advocate for real change.
So the first time I met him was at the Kennedy party on election night. And then we left that and we went to the Donald Trump party in Palm Springs. And I talked to him and some others. And I gave him a copy of our Psywar book. And I said, "Cali, read this. You're being subjected to the same things that I was subjected to, in many cases by the same people, with the same logic. And you might find this book useful in being able to cope and anticipate and counter some of the stuff that's coming at you now and that's going to be coming to you in the future." he and I do speak from time to time. We had a call a couple days ago.
Oh, really? Oh, great. Yeah, I'm also in touch with him. Yeah, talked to him multiple times.
So it is dysfunctional. It is remarkably analogous, the arguments being made, to the attacks that were deployed against me. And I have come to conclude that there is absolutely AI-assisted algorithmic bot activity that is fanning the flames of the opposition to him, because he, Bobby, and others that are being affected are enemy number one for pharma right now and for big ag. And you would be grossly naive to imagine that they don't have targets on their heads. I was at a group, there's a group that meets in DC every couple of months of really heavy hitters. And I was there a few weeks ago. I missed the one that just happened yesterday. And somebody came up to me who had been a lobbyist for pharma, and he said, "Robert, you need to know that I've been in pharmaceutical companies and seen dartboards with your face on it." I mean, that they do perceive us as a threat, and they don't play nice, and they understand modern psychological warfare.
Right. Yeah. And the Maha Report generally, you had another great piece where you highlighted certain sections of the Maha Report and what it was trying to do. Any general thoughts overall in the
So
Maha Report?
I haven't had a podcast since I was there in the White House to really talk about that. So thanks for asking. I saw, being kind of first person, fourth row back watching, I saw some fascinating dynamics. For instance, virtually everybody was very careful to compliment the president and acknowledge the president and acknowledge the president's leadership. That was an explicit theme, to the point that it was almost embarrassing. But the president sucked it up. The president seemed, that's the culture right now, is one needs to explicitly acknowledge the president and his leadership. Another thing that I found fascinating was the emphasis on agriculture. And they had Senator Marshall there, and they also had the Secretary of Agriculture, USDA. And the Secretary of Ag had almost as much time as the Secretary of HHS. And there was, from President Trump, from Bobby, from many of the others that presented, there was a clear and explicit recognition of the importance of American agriculture and the importance of the American farmer. And the subtext was, this is not a threat. This commission report is not a threat to ag or to farmers. And President Trump talked about, in all three elections, the farmers had been big supporters of his, and he was not going to harm or abandon that constituency in any way. So what that translates to is, we're not going to take unilateral action about glyphosate and atrazine and the other desiccants. We're not going to take strong unilateral action about pesticides. That was a subtext through all of this. Remember, this document, the commission report, is a compromise between many agencies. Another thing that surprised me was the person on point in the office of the president, Stephen Miller. Now, if you follow Stephen Miller, he is a bulldog. He will take corporate media people and shred them in the span of
Yeah.
3 minutes.
Yeah, I've seen.
He comes across as extremely aggressive, and I think even the president introduced him as, I forget what the term was. Did he call him a bad guy or a hard guy? A mean guy. I think he called him a mean guy. The president called Steve Miller a mean guy. But Steve Miller, he is committed to MAHA, seriously committed. And he told a story about how there was a bring your kid to work day. And his boy that he brought noticed that he had McDonald's wrappers in his trash can. And his son confronted him with that and said, "I thought you were MAHA." And Stephen Miller felt it appropriate to be making this point with the president there and everybody else. He is a passionate supporter and a great friend of the MAHA movement, and I'm glad to have a friend like that. People were walking on thin ice around agriculture. The president talked about that he is willing to disregard the lobbyists and to plow forward with this agenda, that he strongly supports this agenda. He strongly supports the secretary. He strongly supports these major changes. They have to be made. I'm convinced that the president and Secretary Kennedy share a common passion about protecting children. And if you look at, if you look through the kind of the themes and subtext of the MAHA Commission report, again and again and again, it's about children. It's about children's health. And the opening line that the president emphasized and Secretary Kennedy emphasized, and it was mentioned again and again and again, is that if something doesn't change, our children will live sicker, shorter lives.
Yeah.
And that's very powerful. But you also heard the president speaking and emphasizing MAHA moms. This chatter about MAHA moms and Naomi's assertion that she represents MAHA moms. I mean, come on. Naomi is a feminist. She has multiple Pulitzer Prizes for feminist literature. She comes from the left. Okay, she is not MAGA, and she is not MAHA, and she seems to want to tear it down. Shannon Joy has posted repeatedly, who's part of that same petition, that she wants to tear down MAHA, and she is absolutely a Trump hater. And Satya Latipova, another prominent signatory to that, has recently been saying that I'm a mass murderer. These people are not, they're not on our side. They are not with the program. They are actively trying to tear it apart. And folks seem to not recognize that. But the president clearly recognizes the importance of this contingent that came with RFK Jr. And the rather odd confluence of MAHA and MAGA, one coming from the left, one coming from the right, that split a key constituency of the Democrat base off. And that constituency, we can call it, the old granola head Birkenstock crowd, or whatever you want to call it, yoga moms, but now they're being labeled MAHA moms. They're mothers that are concerned with the health and education of their children for good reason. And they voted, maybe some of them held their nose, but they voted for President Trump. And that, he may have won without them. He might have won without Bobby. But I don't think there's any debate that the momentum and votership that came with Secretary Kennedy when he joined forces with Donald Trump's campaign played a key role in the electoral size of the electoral victory and the majority vote victory that was conferred on President Trump. And he wants to retain those for the midterm. Again, if these folks are acting in good faith, and I'm not convinced they are, but if they're acting in good faith and they act to split the Maha moms back off of the Republican Party and the MAGA Maha coalition, they are undermining the midterm election in a very direct way.
Right. Yeah. And what I see from those people is that they're clearly very passionate about their causes and their missions, but they're not, we've already hammered this point enough, but they're not understanding how to actually implement things. It's like they're living in some other.
And you've cited my Substack a few times, and I'm grateful for that. One of the essays that I put out right after the election was focused on the history of populism and American populism in general. And American populist movements and really global populist movements, we have the same problem with the Make Europe Great Again right now. Populist movements historically have had a lot of trouble converting their cause, their particular political issues, into policy. Because, of course, they're populists. They're coming from outside the established structure. They don't understand the levers of power. They don't understand how to get things done. And they have this, often very legitimate complaints that are coming from the ground up, typically, truly grassroots in many cases. And they sometimes will win elections, but almost never do they effectively convert those issues into policy. A lot of times what happens, and the American Tea Party was a great example of this. In many ways, from my point of view, MAGA is a modern derivative of the American Tea Party. It comes from those same roots. And it's now matured to the point where it is being effective in implementing policy changes. Whatever you think about Trump, what happened over the first 100 days is remarkable in terms of implementation. But the history of populist movements is they tend to have all this passion and then fail to convert their issues into sustainable policy. And that is the challenge. And what I'm seeing, and I truly believe this, is that Secretary Kennedy, who I was not particularly optimistic would have the chops to be able to manage his way through this massive organization, is maturing far faster than I ever expected as a functional leader. And I think that if we give him the oxygen, we trust a little bit and give him a little bit of space, time, he is on track to converting this populist upswell into sustainable policy change. But he's not going to get there if these folks succeed in fracturing his base, because in DC, that is political death.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We talked about mRNA products, talked about FDA, talked about the Maha Report, talked about Cali means, and some of those controversies there. Is there anything else you wanted to hit on in terms of issues pertaining to Maha?
Oh, Maha. Well, the thing that I enjoyed most the other day was this essay that I wrote. It was a bit of a stretch in reaction to the Ukrainian drone attack on Russia and the kind of wake-up call about what seventh generation warfare is about. But that's not a Maha issue. I think the Maha agenda in my opinion, is proceeding. It's exceeding my expectations in terms of progress it's making. They're taking on things like infant formula.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up.
And there are so many things that have gone out of kilter, and they are really picking them off in a rapid fire manner. I think the Ron Johnson presentation, and credit where credit's due, Peter did an excellent job in his testimony and presentations. Peter McCullough.
Despite you guys have some kind of conflict I'm not that aware about.
Yeah, that's long-standing. I went up and congratulated him afterwards, but he wouldn't let people take pictures with him and me in the same picture, for example. But all that aside, I think he did a great job, and I congratulated him for it. And I think that we are going to see Senator Ron. I talked to him about a week ago, and he is frustrated that despite the fact that he has the power of the subpoena, he's still running into all kinds of obstructionism about getting access to documents. But I'm absolutely convinced that he is passionate. It is a major passion for him to stand up for the vaccine industry. And I think that he is going to, all of this jabber about this, that, and the other thing, pay attention to what Ron Johnson is doing, because he has a clear idea of tactics and strategy. He's moving forward on those things. There will be further meetings. And so an anecdote, I went to that meeting also in the Senate, and I happened to sit right behind three lobbyists, and I'm sure they had no idea who I was. This is one of the advantages of being so censored on the left, is that the folks that are, let's say, not politically aligned with me don't recognize me, because they're not going to watch Rogan or your podcast or anything else.
Yeah.
So the people that are our friends come up to me on airports all the time and all over the world, but the people on the other side don't recognize me. So I'm sitting behind these three lobbyists, and the senator starts his opening statements, and they're sniggering at each other. It's really enormously rude. They're derisive. They clearly think they have the upper hand. And as the hearings progressed, they got more and more nervous, more and more down-faced, downtrodden. And then towards the end, I overheard one of them in the hall. I went out to the restroom, and he was on the phone to one of his clients or somebody, talking about what problems they have, and they're at risk for losing a lot of their academic supporters. Senator Ron did a great job. Peter did a great job. The others that were there and testifying, many of them did a fantastic job. And I think we're going to see more of that. And that is going to what's going to move the needle. That's what's going to get the public to acknowledge. I mean, it's now accepted. It's within the Overton window. There's two things, really big movement in terms of opening the Overton window. Number one, we now not only can talk about that it was an engineered pathogen, it's the consensus.
Okay? Yeah.
And the other one is that myocarditis is caused by the vaccine. That is now broadly accepted.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of that poll that we cited also in one of those articles.
Yeah.
It shows that the needle has been moved on myocarditis. The needle of public opinion about these products is movable, and it is possible to penetrate on a bipartisan fashion and in independence. We can get there. We can't get there by tearing each other apart. We got to get there together. We got to walk and march hand in hand on this thing. And we got to support people like the senator and, frankly, the new director of the CDC when she gets confirmed, and the commissioner of the FDA, who is doing, I'm sure, what he can in a difficult environment to get national consensus that these products are not safe and they're not effective. We're almost there. We gotta hang together. Remember the quote: "We should hang together, or we'll certainly all hang separately." We have to stop the circular firing squad stuff and get on the same page, support our leadership, have faith in them. We put them in there. Is there somebody in the world that is going to do a better job than Bobby Kennedy? I don't know. Who is that person? I couldn't do his job.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to do his job. I wouldn't want to be his right-hand person in that job. That is a horrible job he's doing. The guy's 70 years old, and he is carrying a huge weight. It's Herculean. And he has people, like Callie, that are younger, passionate. I saw a lot of hardworking, passionate people at that White House rollout for the MAHA Commission. And they were proud of what they'd done. They had worked hours and hours and hours, long hours, for weeks and weeks and weeks to produce that product, get that consensus, and they were fired up about the next 100 days and coming up with their action plan for what they're going to do about it. And right now, as far as I'm concerned, we ought to be standing beside and behind them, helping them, not tearing them down.
Yeah. Yeah. And a couple more things before we go. Secretary Kennedy has been posting a lot of content recently. I've been seeing on social media about the importance of investigating cell and gene therapy, which she says holds a lot of promise. Talked about CRISPR gene editing therapy. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm with him, and I also believe that we must have a revision of the biowarfare treaty, and that gain-of-function research, the risks far outweigh the benefits. We need to rethink the whole biodefense industrial enterprise. There's the secretary is sacrificing sacred cows on almost a daily basis now, and of course, none of it's being captured in corporate media. But I'm amazed at his courage, if nothing else, and his commitment. I mean, he doesn't. What? Think of Alex Azar. What did Alex Azar actually do? Right? Can you name another secretary of HHS that has been this activist? In my entire lifetime, I've never heard of it.
Right. Yeah. Lastly, the Moderna decision, which we alluded to earlier. And by the way, it says Moderna receives U.S. FDA approval. You were talking about authorization is the technical term. This is Moderna's website.
Yeah.
Moderna receives U.S. FDA approval for COVID vaccine neck spike for individuals 65 and older, as well as individuals aged 12 to 64 with at least one or more underlying risk factor as defined by the CDC. Now, a lot of people have been criticizing this, of course, and there's been a lot of debate on social media. Any thoughts on that?
So, in all of this buzz, what is next? Do you know? What makes it different from the older vaccines?
No, I'm not. Is it mRNA based?
Yes.
Okay.
Same formulation.
Yep.
Reason why they call it next spike is that they have modified and deleted some of the protein domains of the spike protein that are associated with this bad toxicity. Remember, we have 4 or 5 different sources of toxicity with these mRNA products. And one of them, clearly most toxic, is this stabilized, engineered spike entire spike protein, which circulates for an extended period of time. And by the way, the logic was, if you think of spike as kind of like a catcher's mitt, it's got a pocket, and it's got something like fingers out here, or fielder's mitt. Baseball, I'm talking about baseball. You could say an even bigger version is the using hockey for the goalie, right? That's a big mitt. But think about more like a baseball fielder's mitt or a catcher's mitt. It has a pocket where the ball goes. And then it has these fingers out here that, in the case of spike, are important for binding and interacting with cell surface proteins that are its ligands, the things that it sticks to, in order for the virus to enter the cell. And the thinking was that you needed the whole spike protein, and you needed it engineered so that when it binds something, normally it kind of closes, just like a catcher's mitt closes, okay, around that thing, but ACE2. But it was engineered so it stays open. The reason is because the belief was that you needed antibodies that would bind to that pocket, that would block its ability to functionally bind and allow the virus to enter the cell. That was why it was engineered as the open spike. But it turns out that that isn't working. And the virus rapidly evolves to change a lot of those domains in there and neutralize that antibody binding. And furthermore, the virus kind of uses, it's almost like a Trojan horse. A lot of the antibodies end up in these areas of the spike that are non-neutralizing. Okay, so they're wasted. So you were getting all the toxicity and bad stuff, and you weren't getting the good stuff that it was intended to do. Now, normally in product development, you would have had the time to figure this out, and you would have said, oh, that was our theory, but it didn't work out that good. Maybe we better fix it before we deploy it across the world. But they didn't do that. They just said, well, we're such geniuses. This is what we need to do, and we're going to do it, and everybody's going to take it, basically, right? So next spike basically says, whoa, hold on. What happens if we modify this, delete a lot of these things that aren't necessary, and only include protein domains that are associated with actively blocking the ability of the virus to infect and cause disease spread? And the domains that were selected were actually already determined to be useful in other protein-based vaccines. Remember, there's a whole world of COVID vaccines that have nothing to do with gene therapy.
Right.
And basically what they did is they took...
You're talking about the adenovector
No,
vaccine?
that's gene therapy also. Okay. There are protein-based vaccines.
AstraZeneca's gene therapy?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
You missed that memo.
But
yeah.
People were saying AstraZeneca's non-mRNA.
Rav, you're going to drive me nuts.
That's what I conventionally understood.
Adenovirus vectors have been one of the leading gene therapy technologies for decades. And in fact, they were being pioneered at the Salk Institute as a gene therapy vector at the same time I was there with my discoveries with RNA. And I convinced the senior postdoc in the lab at the time that then went and created a company called Crucell as a gene therapy company based on adenovirus vector technology. And I convinced him that it was never going to work for gene therapy, but it might be useful for vaccines. Okay. And Crucell pivoted became a vaccine company and was sold to J&J, and that's the technology. It is all gene therapy technology. But there are traditional vaccines that use...
Is it mRNA technology?
mRNA technology came out of a gene therapy lab. How many podcasts have I had to say this on? Okay. And I know that because I was the guy, working in the leading gene therapy lab in the world at the time, at the Salk Institute. Okay.
Yeah.
Of course, the press said, no, it's not a gene therapy, but now widely, most people say it is. But the adenovectors were even more gene therapy. They are hardcore, traditional viral vector gene therapy. So AZ and J&J are gene therapy used for vaccines, even more than the mRNA was. mRNA was kind of an outlier, never been mainstream for gene therapy until recently. But adenoviral vectors has been mainstream for gene therapy since the early 90s.
So it's a gene therapy, but not mRNA, the AstraZeneca vaccine.
It is a viral vectored gene therapy. Adenoviral vectored cold virus. It's an engineered cold virus.
Right, and that's different, but that's different from mRNA technology.
Pardon?
Right? But that's not mRNA technology, right?
No. There are many different gene therapy platforms.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's what I was clarifying. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the adenovector vaccines. Yeah.
But and there's AAV, and there's retroviruses, and there's lentiviruses, and blah blah blah. Okay, there's a bunch of them. But there are traditional protein subunit vaccines made in the case of Novavax in caterpillar cells. And also in India, there is a vaccine that is a subunit vaccine made in, as I recall, yeast and E. coli. Okay. And here's my point, is that the antigens that are used, that are purified and manufactured in those, basically are the antigens that have now been jammed into an RNA vector by Moderna and marketed as NextSpike. So you can think of NextSpike as taking the approach that a lot of the protein-based vaccines, like say Sputnik, used, but then adapting them to the RNA platform. That's why it's NextSpike. It's not the old spike, it's the new spike.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. And do you think it'll have less of the adverse events and safety concerns?
Let's hope that it has less of, for instance, the coagulopathy and the myocarditis. But the adverse events associated with the pseudouridine, and it's really not even natural pseudouridine. It's a modified, the whole thing now is basically a synthetic chemical that acts like RNA, but it's not. And the lipid toxicity, same problem as before, because it's the same platform. So you still got the RNA, you still got the lipids, you still have the distribution all over the body, you still are producing antigens in cells all over the body, which means they're going to be attacked. You're still going to have a lot of the immunologic problems, but hopefully you're not going to have the same problems with coagulopathy and myocarditis.
And do you think the FDA was correct in authorizing this new vaccine?
No, I want all of these products off the market because those other toxicities are non-trivial, and the fact that it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and the fact that you can't control the dose. You can control the administered dose, but you can't control how much of the functional drug product is produced. I mean, the whole thing violates a whole bunch of central tenets in regulatory science and pharmacology and pharmacotoxicology and biodistribution, and we can go on and on and on. No, I'm with Mary. I want these things off, but as I say, we share common objectives. We differ on strategy and tactics.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I agree. This has been a really interesting conversation. Thanks for all your insights and your explanations into these complex, contentious territories. I appreciate you coming back on.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad we finally were able to schedule it.
Yeah. It's been a nightmare for people watching to schedule this. Just so much going on. But yeah, this has been great. We'll link to your Substack below. Anything else you want to direct people to for where to find you?
It's, as you say, Malone.news now, rebranded from Who is Robert Malone. And X and Truth Social and Getter are all at R.W. Malone, MD. And the books, The Lies My Government Told Me, The Better Future Coming, and Psywar, Enforcing the New World Order, are both available through mostly Amazon. You can get it at Barnes & Noble, places like that too.
Excellent. Yeah, people should check out your Substack. I've been following a lot of what you've been writing there. Really informative pieces, like I said earlier. So
Thanks.
keep that up. It's been great.
Okay, be good.
All right. Thanks.